the Anti-Terrorism Council, because of targeted financial sanctions for transactions relative to proliferation of weapons for mass destruction. Now, in the bill, the AMLC can include these individuals as obviously covered individuals, but how will we allow the AMLC to issue subpoenas to them, or will this be the responsibility of the Anti-Terrorism Council in coordination with the AMLC? I don't think the AMLC has enough manpower to or expertise to do that. Senator Drilon?
Yes, can we be given a little more time to review this? Because these are grant of additional powers to Anti-Money Laundering Council. Apart from the power to issue subpoena, what else are sought to be given? Are they, what other powers do they seek, Madam Chair? I want to see it as a whole rather than this one power we discuss at the time. Ano ba kabuuhan ng gusto nila?
AMLC, can you please respond? Can you describe to me the powers that you're asking for? What exactly will your role be in terms of assessing possible terroristic transactions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So during the mutual evaluation, the evaluators noted that the AMLC is the agency primarily responsible for money laundering investigations, as well as terrorism financing violations. And that is pursuant to the Anti-Money Laundering Act as amended in the Terrorism Financing Suppression and Prevention Act, or RA 10168. But they also noted that the AMLC has no or lacks the investigative powers to perform that function. And so part of the report or recommended actions is to give the AMLC the right authority or right power to fully conduct investigations in regard to this money laundering and terrorism financing. And so we propose the insertion of number 13 as part of the functions of the Anti-Money Laundering Council. And that is to subpoena any person and compel his attendants to produce information, books, papers, documents, data, and other relevant information or objects, or to give a statement under oath in relation to its investigative powers. And those who refuse the subpoena without justifiable cause, or who refuse to supply the AMLC with data requested or required, shall be subject to punishment for contempt in accordance with the provisions of the rules of court, and to administer oath or affirmation to any person appearing in the course of investigation or administrative proceedings.
Okay. You were saying issue a subpoena without issuing a subpoena. Can you read that again?
To subpoena any person and compel his attendants to produce information, books, papers, documents, data, and other relevant information or objects, or to give a statement under oath in relation to his investigative power. Those who refuse the subpoena without justifiable cause, or who refuse to supply the AMLC with data requested or required, shall be subject to punishment for contempt in accordance with the provisions of the rules of court.
We go back to the fact that you don't have the manpower or the expertise to be able to determine exactly if the individual is a terrorist or not. So my question is there going to be a coordination with the Anti-Terrorism Council? Because you're just a little bit over 100 people. Am I correct?
We are 161 as of the moment, and we're looking at 254.
And I remember even now, there's not enough of you to be able to investigate all of these accounts. How can you possibly have the expertise to know and to determine, since you're mostly financial individuals, if in fact an individual or a group is a terrorist group?
Madam Chair, if I may, under the Anti-Terrorism Act, the Executive Director of the AMLC is a member of the Anti-Terrorism Council. So it will be a coordination effort and between the ATC and the AMLC. That's number one. Number two, in regard to countering terrorism and terrorism financing, the obligation of the AMLC is to freeze the assets so that any individual cannot provide financial assistance to any terrorist or terrorist organization. So when the Anti-Terrorism Council prescribes an organization as a terrorist, the AMLC will have to freeze the assets of these organizations or individuals. So that is where the linkages and the coordination would kick in, Madam Chair.
Madam
But
Chair.
it doesn't, yes, Senator Julon.
Yes. Madam Chair, I think it is given that while the legislature, your senators, are generally supportive of any measure which will prevent the use of our financial system by money launderers, we must be careful that such powers, given falling in the hands of the wrong person, can be used for harassment. That is why issues like so that we must be certain that these powers are only for the purpose of achieving the purpose of the law and cannot be used in any way to harass people. That's the underlying premise that where I am coming from. And so that, for example, the AMLC is now asking for authority to freeze the assets.
Freeze.
Is that what you want?
That authority is already under the Anti-Terrorism Act, Senator Drilon. The AMLC has power to freeze the assets of terrorists and terrorist
Yes. And don't you have to go to the courts to get a freeze order?
I think that there's no...
And Senator Drilon, it is the Anti-Money Laundering Council that can issue the freeze order upon finding of probable cause.
By the judge?
By the Anti-Money Laundering Council po, under Section 25 and Section 35 and Section 35 and 36 of the Anti-Terrorism Act.
Basically, Senator Drilon, I don't think they need to go to the courts to obtain a permit for a subpoena. They can do it themselves, and there's no injunctive relief except to go directly to the Supreme Court or I think the Court of Appeals. So that's a pretty broad power for the AMLC. I'm not sure if other countries have that same scope of authority.
Yes.
Madam Chair and Senator Drilon, sorry. In addition to the power to issue motu proprio freeze orders, may I highlight the additional powers that they're requesting? They can overturn the courts on the issuance of injunctive relief against freeze orders and forfeiture proceedings. Sobra-sobra naman yata. Very massive overreach na yata to. They can also compel the courts to give them the right to preserve and manage assets. Lahat na lang mapupunta sa kanila at hindi napapansinin ang court order. Parang labis-labis na po ito.
Yes, that is why, Madam Chair, we hope that we be given more time to review this this provision, because we have to see and analyze whether or not these are already first as a matter of law. Are these judicial powers which is sought to be exercised by the AMLC? And number two, what safeguards are there to make sure that it is exercised properly? So that number three, it might be an overreach, as Senator Ivy is saying, and it might be too broad. That kawawa naman ang taong bayan.